Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing. It is Wednesday, the 16th of July. My name is Ryan McGinley. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Josh McCarthy. Josh, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Ryan. Not been on since last week, so a bit to get through today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, plenty of news to discuss. How much are you enjoying pre-season so far? I know we're 3 games in. We've had Queen's Park. We have had Queen's Park, Cork City, and Estrella as well. How much have you been enjoying pre-season, and are you looking forward to tonight's game against Sporting Club?
Yeah, I think it's just good to have the football back, to be honest, isn't it? We were starved of it for a long time over summer, no international tournament. This summer, at least last year, you kind of had the Euros to keep you occupied, but now it's a bit of a barren summer, but now with Celtic back, it's all good. And especially tonight, I think the opposition certainly ramps up from tonight onwards before the end of the season, so that's good. So obviously, no disrespect to the likes of Estrella, even though they beat Celtic, Cork, Queen's Park, I think it will be a better challenge for Celtic in the game against Sporting than going forward as well. So, no, it's good to have the football back.
Yeah, and Victor Gyökeres is on strike from Sporting Club as well, so that's something the Celtic don't need to worry about. Talking about strikers, I think that's been the main source of news happening this morning. With Japanese news, it always comes out around about, it feels like 6, 7 a.m. You wake up and you hear of this news story coming from Japan. I'll just read it on the Celtic Way website, which is available to read just now. Kawasaki Frontale have confirmed that Shin Yamada's exit ahead of his move to Celtic. Parkhead Club have been closing in on the Japanese attacker for some time, but he's been on international duty, slowing the deal down. He's returned to the club to say his goodbyes and will become a Celtic player immediately. There was a statement put out today by his current team saying, "We hereby announce that as of today, July the 16th, which is today, Wednesday, player Shin Yamada will be leaving the team to proceed with preparations for a transfer to an overseas club. Further details will be announced once they are officially confirmed." Now, Josh, there's been nobody else seemingly in for Shin Yamada apart from Celtic. They didn't name Celtic in this statement, but you would assume that this is Shin Yamada making his way to the Scottish champions, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. He's not in the squad for Kawasaki's game, actually, so there's no risk of injury, but he will be given a farewell speech after the match. But yeah, all indications point towards him flying out to Glasgow after that game and probably becoming a Celtic player before the end of the week, which is ideal. It's usually the case with these Japanese deals that you get a lot of clarification from the club over there about what's happening with the player, which is quite refreshing actually compared to how the European deals go and other clubs that Celtic deal with. But Shin Yamada coming in, I think it for me signals the end of Celtic's striker hunt. I would probably expect him to be the only other striker Celtic signed this summer, and it is a big gamble. We can go on to talk about that in a minute, but yeah, it's another one in, another one over the line. It's a relatively cheap signing as well. The reported fee to be about £1.5 million. But I expect him to be a Celtic player by the end of the week, if not beginning of next week.
Yeah, I don't think that he'll take part in the game against Newcastle this weekend. If he joins, I think it would be more of a view to the Como Cup, maybe getting towards the first games of the actual competitive season. But I did a fact file on this player last week, sort of aggregated all of the information that we had of the player. Just for those that don't know anything about Shin Yamada, he is I think 5'9" striker, 5'10". So he's still a little bit on the short side, but he's taller than the likes of Daisen Maeda and Kyogo Furuhashi, around about the same height as Rio Hatate and Tomoki Iwata, who's since plays for Birmingham alongside Kyogo, coincidentally. He had a really good season last season in the 2024 J1 League, where he scored, I believe it was 19, 20 goals, had a real standout season. Even though Kawasaki did struggle, they're one of those teams that traditionally perform pretty well in the J1 League. They're near the top of the table. It's been quite weird in that sense that both Kawasaki and Yokohama F. Marinos haven't been challenging for the title this season. It's been a bit of a changing of the guard with Vissel Kobe, etc. All going for it. I think it's the Antlers as well that are doing pretty well in the J1 League this year. This season, he's not been as prolific. I think he's scored 4 goals in all competitions, including 2 domestically in the J1 League. So, Josh, just for Celtic, they'll be wanting the 2024 Yamada rather than the one that's been playing this season, you would suggest?
Yeah, I think it's proven in Shin Yamada that he has the goals in him. You know, if you can get the best out of him, that is there. His highest goal scoring season in a J League campaign is 19 goals. The highest Daisen Maeda average is 23. The highest Daisen Maeda was 23, sorry. So he's only 4 less than Maeda's best goal scoring season in Japan, but the goals are there, and if you can unlock that out of him, then you have a player on your hands. But it's just the risk of whether you're going to get that out of him. I think that Brendan Rodgers will obviously see something in him. If he's signing him, he will veto the signing. It won't be one where the manager doesn't give it the all clear. So he knows what he's getting. He'll be bringing him in and looking to get the best out of him. One thing about him as well, Shin Yamada, is he's midway through a season, so he will be sharp, he will be fit. To go, which is a positive compared to if you were signing a striker from Europe who might still have a bit of pre-season work to go. So he'll be fully fit and fired, and we've seen how Hayato Inamura has kind of come into the team recently, and he's looked like he's firing on all cylinders, albeit in pre-season friendly. So you're hoping you get the same out of Shin Yamada. In terms of his profile, watched a couple of videos. Videos don't tell you how good a player are; they just tell you a bit about their style of play. And for me, there are similarities to Kyogo in terms of his movement, in terms of the way he's able to get a shot out of nowhere. Really, he's good with his left foot, he's good with his right foot. Put the ball in there, he can score with a header. So he looks quite decent in that aspect. I'll be speaking to Dan Orlowitz just after the briefing this morning, actually, for a piece that will be going up in the Celtic Way just about Shin Yamada. So keep your eyes peeled for that. He's a kind of renowned expert of Japanese football, so I'll be looking forward to hearing what he has.
Yeah, a very familiar name to those who remembered when Kyogo came to the club. I think he made the rounds across all Celtic fan media at that point. And we learned all about Kyogo, Daisen Maeda, Ryo Hatate. I think that's a positive and a negative with regard to the summer signing of Shin Yamada, because he'll be fully fit. Yes, but in the second half of the season, would you make this point as well, that in the second half of the season you're going to need to manage his game time because he's already went through a whole season, or need enough half a season and then another half of a season, which would equate to a whole season?
Yeah, especially with no winter break as well, so he's not going to get kind of time off within that. The only time he's probably going to get off is the kind of September and November international breaks. That'll be his kind of chance to recharge his batteries if he doesn't get called up for Japan. But yeah, that could be an issue. That's why you've got other strikers in the building. You know, you've got Adamida. I expect Callum Osman to probably stay at the club for the season and not go out on loan, so he'll be an option. You don't know how he's going to do. Maeda can play up front as well. So yeah, you have other options, but for Shin Yamada, he'll be coming in looking to make that instant impact. And if he can do that, I mean, we've seen it with the likes of Ryo Hatate. He came in kind of midway through a campaign and ended up playing, I think, for something like 18 months straight. And he was decent within that time. No real let up in his performances. But yeah, it could be an issue, the burnout type thing. But on the whole, if you can just keep him fit, firing and manage his minutes, like you say. And I think Brendan Rodgers has been really good with that, actually, last season. In that kind of ultra marathon period, he managed a lot of players' minutes very well. I can't recall Celtic getting many major injuries during that period. So yeah, I back the manager to kind of to be smart in that aspect. Yeah,
I know you touched on it before, but do you expect that to be the final striking signing of the summer for Celtic?
Yeah, I can't see another one being added to the ranks. Obviously, we had the talk about Giuseppe Ambrosino last week, but that seems to have kind of died on its feet. Cremonese seemingly getting closer to a deal than Celtic at the minute, if you're going by the reports that are coming out from Italy. So yeah, I expect Shin Yamada to be the only striker, and he's the fourth senior striker technically in the building at Celtic. Once he comes in, Johnny Kenny, Callum Osman, Adamida and Daisen Maeda can play up front as well. So I expect Kenny to leave on loan if he signs a contract, and then your 3 striker options for the forthcoming season will be Ida, Yamada and Callum Osman, and then, like I keep saying, Maeda can play there as well if needed. So it's I know supporters will talk a lot about the financial aspect and Celtic spending the money and not spending a lot of money this summer. A lot of times we've seen it with Celtic in the past, the amount of money you spend doesn't equate to how good the player is. You know, Daisen Maeda came in, he's Celtic's best player at the minute, came in for £1.5 million. Same with Ryo Hatate, one of Celtic's most key players, came in for £1 million. So I know people want money to be spent, and I think more money can get you a quality player as well, but at the same time, sometimes we've seen how you can get you can be shrewd in the market, and hopefully that can be the case with Yamada.
Yeah, there was a piece that went on the Herald and the Celtic Way a couple of days ago from Stephen McGowan when he was talking about Celtic's spending and the need for Celtic to spend in order to keep Brendan Rodgers at the club beyond the end of this season. He did make a point of calling it potential buyer's remorse when it comes to some of the signings. You know, big signings such as Arnott Engels for £11 million, Austin Trusty for 5.5, Adamida for 9-10 million. Do you think that Celtic could be feeling that? You know, the fact that they needed to spend that money last season, and maybe they're seeing potential bargains elsewhere that they could maybe still get the same output but for less money, or would you want to see those big signings still come? Maybe those big signings could come in the wing positions, which is where Celtic have lost a player, Nicholas Kuhn.
Yeah, well, I keep saying I think Celtic cannot go through that throughout the rest of this summer, and I don't think they will without spending a decent chunk of money. You know, I mean, you look at who's already been brought in. Hayato Inamura was £250,000. Benjamin Negrim was £1.5 million. Yamada's about to be £1.5 million. Doohan and Tierney were both free transfers, so they've only really spent about just under £4 million this summer. So the manager will have been set a budget, the recruitment team will have been set a budget, and they will nowhere near be close to overspending that at the minute. So they'll have a good chunk of that left. Some positions to fill, a lot of positions that still need filling, but I expect money to be spent. I don't think Celtic will go out throughout the rest of the summer and their most expensive player be £3 million. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I expect money to be spent. It needs to be spent wisely. As we know, you can't be affording to waste it on flops. So that's the issue. But I think the money will be spent. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the money will be spent with regard to Celtic. We've been here before with the club, unfortunately, and you're wanting that money to be spent, I think, before the Champions League qualifiers, because these players, you know, for me, the Champions League their Champions League campaign starts with those two-legged affairs, that two-legged affair against the playoff round team, because if they don't win that, then they go into the Europa League, and then the dynamic changes both financially and in terms of the games that Celtic play. That Thursday-Sunday element is just not good for Celtic. It wouldn't help Celtic if they're fighting on 3 and 4 fronts next season or this season coming up. So I think it's important that Celtic make sure that Champions League qualifier is negotiated as easily as possible or as straightforward as possible. It's not going to be easy against the team that they play against, because likely the team that they come up against will have come through a number of qualifiers to get to this point, so they might even be fresher than Celtic. So for me, it's important that Celtic spend that money now, acclimatise the players ahead of the Como Cup, etc. Potentially a game against Newcastle. If not, then the starting games of the season. I think it's got to be I think you've got to be reminded and remembered and reminded that Celtic start their season before the qualification. You know, it's not as if you play the qualifications cold, you go in cold, and then the season starts. Celtic will have a number of domestic games under their belt before the Champions League qualifiers have even commenced. So it's important that those players are in, they're already delivering for Celtic, and then they can compete on that biggest stage, because it's going to be a difficult time.
Yeah,
would you agree?
Yeah, certainly. You don't want to be leaving it until the last minute. You know, even I think after the Champions League playoff is played out and Celtic know what their fate's going to be, at that point there's only a couple of days left of the window. So you don't want to be moving about at the last minute trying to get deals done, even though that was the case last summer. You kind of want to avoid that happening this time around. But I think Stephen made a really good point in his piece the other day, saying that it would appear Celtic are scared of spending the money because they're scared of not qualifying for the Champions League. But at the same time, when they're not spending that money, it's impacting their chances to qualify for the Champions League. So it's a double-edged sword in that respect. But I think those at the top of the club need to back the manager. They need to have no fear about the Champions League playoff and have a bit of assurance in the knowledge that if they spend the money and if they back the manager with quality players, he will get the team over the line in the Champions League playoff. But it's just about whether they're going to do that. Even at this moment in time, I think Celtic would be good enough to navigate a Champions League playoff with the squad they have. But it's the risk. You run the risk. Do you get an injury? Do you get a red card in the first leg, and all of a sudden Daisen Maeda is suspended for the second leg, and you're playing Yang at left wing? You know, you can't control these scenarios that could happen. So you need to invest.
It's that risk factor that stung Celtic in the past with the likes of Maribor, Cluj, AEK Athens as well. The list goes on and on. Braga as well, if you go further back. Sion, if you go even further back than that. Legia Warsaw. There are so many examples of this happening for Celtic before. You would hope and expect that Celtic have learned their lessons transfer-wise getting the business done early. They've not had to negotiate qualifiers in a while. They've had that easy route to the Champions League, win the domestic league, and you're automatically into the group stage or league phase, depending on what year they were playing in. But now they've got that qualifier to negotiate, so they know that target is there, and you're just hoping that they bring in players accordingly. Another player that's been linked with the club in recent days, there's been two names linked with the club in recent days, in Shin Yamada and Cercle Bruges left-back Flavio Nazinho. Now, Sky Sports have reported that Celtic are keen to bring the 21-year-old to Scotland, but they've not yet tabled an official offer. He impressed in the under-21s Euros, where he's a teammate of Paulo Bernardo, who plays for Celtic at the moment. He made 39 appearances in all competitions for Brugge last season, scoring 2 goals and assisting a further 8. He's made 8 appearances for Portugal's under-21 team since making his debut for the side last November. With Kieran Tierney already at the club, I think there's an expectancy that he won't play every single game for Celtic and that his minutes will be prioritised. So that second left-back signing is just as important as Kieran Tierney being back in the frame. Josh, what do you make of this? A Portuguese under-21 international. Portugal are a pretty good side at the moment. Even their under-21s teams have really talented youngsters. On paper, it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's another player Celtic have been linked with this summer who was at the under-21 Euros. We had Ambrosino as well, who was there for Italy. So, yeah, Nazinho, I think it would be an exciting signing if you got him as the backup to Kieran Tierney. For him, obviously there are other clubs interested in big leagues too. It's just whether he's going to be content to come to Celtic, and he knows his role is probably going to be the backup to Kieran Tierney. But he will get minutes. That's not to say he's not going to get minutes, because we know Tierney's, since he left Celtic in 2019, I think he's averaged something like 25 there or thereabouts games a season. So Celtic play 50, 60. So this guy who's going to be coming in is going to be playing a lot of football as well, getting opportunities to play in semi-finals, finals, Champions League games as well. So it's a great opportunity for whoever's coming in to learn from one of the best as well. So it would excite me if Celtic were to sign this player. Obviously, I kind of stand out in Belgium last season with Cercle Bruges, and then getting that recognition at international level. And like you say, Portugal under 21's one of the better under 21 side. We know that with Paulo Bernardo. Celtic have had a lot of joy with Portuguese players in the past, Jota at the club as well. So I'd be intrigued if this one could go over the line. I've not watched much of him, if I'm honest, not seen much of him, not sure of his profile as a player, whether it's similar to Tierney, whether it's different to Tierney or not. But one point I would make at the end of the day, it's another player that's been named that Celtic are interested in, keen in exploring a move for. What fans want is the club to actually be making the moves. They want to hear of offers, they want to hear of movement happening. We were talking a bit earlier about our kind of transfer frustrations and that, and getting moves over the line. One point I would make on that, in fairness to the club, is they have did a lot of business so far already. Doohan, Tierney, Nygren, Osmond, about to be Yamada, Inamura's coming as well. So that's 6 signings. There will be more movement to come, but at the same time, they've done a decent bit of business already so far.
Yeah, this time last season, I believe it was round about the point where Celtic had just signed Viljami Sinisalo and were in the process of signing Kasper Schmeichel. So there was only 2 signings in. I think the one thing that maybe a lot of supporters were expecting is first team ready players to come through the door. Now, by all accounts, it looks as if Benjamin Nygren will be one of them. I'm really impressed in that 45-minute cameo against Estrella. Shin Yamada, 25-year-old, he won't be going in to play for the B team. He'll be straight into the first team, hoping to make a similar impact to the likes of Kyogo, Hatate, Maeda, etc. And he's got that proven track record of scoring a lot of goals in a season. So Brendan Rodgers will be hoping that maybe a new environment can help this player get back to his best. In terms of Nazinho, I think he fits the profile that Celtic will be looking for, a young left back to shadow Kieran Tierney, who will be keen on playing games, and will also be keen, if he was to make the move to the club, to oust Tierney from that left back position. Now, I remember a few years back, you had Jeremy Frimpong and you had Hatem Abdelhamid. Elhamid was the first choice right back to start the season until Frimpong came to the fore. Having that dynamic between the two players, I believe Elhamid was round about the same age as what Kieran Tierney is just now. And I'm not writing off Kieran Tierney, but I think that he will miss games due to knocks here and there, little niggles here and there. So having a young player coming in who's hungry, who's fresh, who's looking to make that impact both domestically and in European competition would be an ideal scenario for Celtic. Now there's also been a little bit of talk about Jeffrey Schloop as well over the past 12, 14 hours. He played for Celtic in the second half of last season. It's clear that Celtic are still close to his heart because he's wearing Celtic gear in training and individual training back down in Leicester, where he's currently getting put through his paces at, I think it's Prime Performance Agency or Prime Performance Hub. So he's still without a club. Most recently he was linked with West Bromwich Albion, who are managed by Ryan Mason, but he's still not put pen to paper on a deal. He's still available for a transfer. If Flavio Nazinho doesn't join Celtic, now it looks as if Celtic are interested in this player by all accounts. Do you see them going back in for the likes of Jeffrey Schloop, a guy that they know what they're going to get from him and they know that he can possibly be depended on?
Yeah, I think I could see that happening, to be honest with you, Ryan. If Nazinho or any of the other left backs that are linked in the future don't work out, I certainly could see the club going back in for Jeffrey Schloop, especially on a free transfer. They know what he can do, they know he can perform, not just domestically but in Europe as well. You've seen his performance against Bayern Munich that night, the game away from home. He was terrific. One of the best players in the park for me that night. He can cover a multitude of positions. He can play left back, he can play left wing, he can play in midfield. He's proven they can do that, not just down south, but for Celtic at times as well. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Jeffrey Schloop come in permanently, to be honest, if a move for another left back doesn't work out. It's just for him, the issue might be the wages. I think even teams in the English Championship can probably offer higher wages than Celtic at times, the teams at the top end of the Championship. So it's about whereabouts he wants to go. Obviously showing his love for Celtic, still wearing the gear. So let's just see. It's certainly a player I would keep an eye on his future between now and the end of the summer. I'm a bit surprised he's not got a club yet. We're sitting here 16th of July. Scottish Premiership season starts in 2 weeks. So the longer it goes on without him getting a club other than Celtic, I think there could be an opportunity for him to come in permanently.
Do you think there'd be a frustration from the Celtic support that a guy that's been without a club for the best part of a month now, or over a month now, hasn't been signed to Celtic when he's been there and available? Will there be a little bit of an annoyance that Celtic have maybe went for other players and then went back to the player when the player's been available this whole time?
Yeah, well, I think if he did come in now, it would be clear that he wasn't the first choice option to come in to be the backup to Kieran Tierney, wouldn't it? Because if Celtic wanted him to be the first choice to be backup, they would have signed him by now, I think. So they obviously want someone else, and that's not Jeffrey Schloop now. It's just a case of whether that move for someone else, such as Nazinho, is going to work out or not. And if it doesn't, then I'm sure they will certainly at least ask the question of Jeffrey Schloop. And to be honest, if you're Schloop, you're looking at a move to West Brom, English Championship, okay, an interesting upcoming manager in Ryan Mason, could get promoted to the Premier League, probably going to be comfortable playing down there. Or do you come to Celtic where you've had that joy already, you've won a title, you've seen what the club is, you've seen how big the club is, you've played in the Champions League, the biggest stage of all, against one of the best teams in Europe, and shown that you can compete at that level, and you want that for another year or 2 years to finish your career before you retire. I think for Schloop it would be a no-brainer to return to the club. It's just about whether Celtic want to make a move for him or not.
Yeah, I think it's two different dynamics. With Nazinho, you're bringing in a young player, and with Jeffrey Schloop, you're bringing in an older player, both probably with the same expectancy of game time. One being an older pro that would want to play every week, and then the other a younger professional who wants to make his name, who wants to shadow off a Kieran Tierney, but at the same time wants to overtake him in the squad. So it's an interesting dynamic, the left back position, and I think for me personally, I'm just glad that Celtic are getting linked with left backs, whether that be Schloop or Nazinho, because I think there's got to be that understanding that Tierney won't play every game for Celtic next season, and more importantly, you prioritise his games. If he is doing a midweek game in the Champions League or Europa League, if Celtic are to play in that competition, then you potentially want that change for the weekend to bring in somebody else, just so you can prioritise him and just so you're making sure that he's not getting those injuries. Now, there was another story that came out last night from Stephen McGowan, exclusive in the Herald, Josh, about the cooperation partnership, the cooperation agreements, and there was a lot of talk in the previous few months that Celtic would be in an agreement with Queen's Park, the Championship side, but that seems to not be happening because they are slashing costs ahead of the City Facilities Management withdrawing their financial backing next year. It now looks as if Scott Brown's Ayr United will be that cooperation team for Celtic. Obviously, Scott Brown, former Celtic captain, legendary captain. What do you make of this? And what do you make of this rule as a whole? I think it's a really good opportunity for some players to have that game time for a club, but also have the flexibility to come back to Celtic.
Yeah, I think on paper it looks like a good strategy, certainly across the country. We just don't really know how well and how beneficial it's going to be until 6 months down the line, 7 months down the line when it's fully in play. In terms of Ayr United, it doesn't really surprise me, to be honest, given the clear links Celtic have had. A couple of players went out on loan there last season, Lenny Agbear, Josh Clark, and obviously Scott Brown's in charge. I'm told Sean Maloney was down there the other day at Somerset Park. So yeah, I think all points towards Ayr United and Celtic tying themselves up to an agreement. And Jude Bonner, obviously going there on loan per reports. That's not part of the cooperation agreement. That's just a straight loan. So he'll have that kind of stability of where he's going to be for the forthcoming season, which is good. But for other guys, it's a good opportunity. Obviously, United, they're a team who are wanting to get promoted to the Scottish Premiership. They were in the playoffs last season, so it's not as if these guys are going down to a team at the kind of lower levels of the Championship who are looking to avoid relegation. They're going to a team who are looking to dominate games, who are looking to get promotion, who are looking to win all their matches. So it's a good environment for the players to be in terms of the standards. Scott Brown drives really high standards there. So yeah, again, good for the players to learn from that off a Celtic legend as well. So yeah, I think it's a good agreement for Celtic to have, and I'm sure they'll get one with maybe a club in League One perhaps as well. But yeah, for the Championship, it doesn't surprise me in a way, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out, actually seeing how beneficial it is for these young players.
I think just in general, I'm looking forward to seeing how the Championship turns out this season. I think it's so interesting. So many Celtic links as well when you look at it. Look at Dunfermline with Neil Lennon. Look at Partick Thistle with Mark Wilson. Ayr United, of course, with Scott Brown. You know, in terms of recent Celtic history, there's been Barry Robson at Raith Rovers. It's incredible. So I think it's going to be a really, really interesting season. And you've also got teams that are looking to make that impact. You've got Ross County, who got relegated last season. They'll be looking to get back up. It looks as if they've not sold Ronan Hale yet, so that could be a really good sign for them down in the Championship. And I think that was an interesting point that you made with regard to the League One side, because Celtic can also get cooperation agreements, I believe, with League One and League Two sides as well. So different clubs for different leagues. You could even accommodate different clubs with different levels of players as well. And I think that would tell you a lot about where the players are in terms of their development, because if a player's going to the Championship, maybe they're higher up in the club's estimations, and in League One and League Two, maybe younger players or players that need that game time in the lower divisions. But either way, those players making that move to League One and League Two, they'll be playing at a higher level than the B team are in the Lowland League.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the main thing really about it, is it gets the players senior experience and exposure to the men's game. I mean, as much as the Lowland League's a senior environment, it's part-time football. That's not really the case if you go to the Championship and a lot of League One teams as well. So a really good opportunity for the youngsters, especially guys who are like 17, 18, to go out and get that experience. And the manager talks about it a lot as well, having that kind of personality to play in a senior environment at a professional club. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this kind of pans out and seeing what youngsters stand out while they're out on loan as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing how it all pans out down in the Championship. Josh, is there anything else that you want to speak about with regard to Celtic? Is there anything that we've missed out on? I know that there's been comments from Melbourne City's manager about Marco Tilio saying that he doesn't expect the Australian winger to be back at Melbourne for next season, ahead of this season, because he expects the player to remain in Europe. Does that point to you? Does that point towards Tilio staying in Europe maybe for a different team, or do you think he can make that breakthrough at Celtic? I know I've kind of just taken over your point, taken away your chance, but I'll let you sort out that point before adding on to anything else.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how it goes with him. I thought he looked all right, actually, in the friendly against Estrella at the weekend. Obviously played a hand in Celtic's opening goal, setting up Rio Hatate. So I think we'll get a better sense of Marco Tilio in terms of how he performs in these friendlies against the bigger sides, the likes of Sporting tonight. You've got Newcastle at the weekend and then the Como Cup as well. So Yeah, obviously Nicholas Kuhn away, the right wing spot's kind of open at the minute. There's an open berth there. We've seen Nygren play at the weekend, but he didn't play on the right wing. He played as a kind of advanced attacking number 8/10, which was interesting. But so certainly the right wing spot is there to be taken, whether Celtic sign a new player or an opportunity for Tilio to go in and make his mark. Yeah, let's just see how he does in the upcoming friendlies. Obviously staying in Europe, whether that's going to be at Celtic or perhaps going out on loan to a European club, I'm not entirely sure. But we've not seen a lot of him. He's only made 2 senior appearances, so I'm intrigued to see more of him, because I still think he has talent. You don't get called up continually to the Australian national team if you don't have talent as a winger, and he looks exciting when he does play. So I think there could be something in there for Celtic in terms of Marco Tilly. I'm just intrigued to see how he does in these upcoming games, obviously starting tonight against Sporting.
Yeah, that would be a really good opportunity for him, because I don't think he had a part in that goal against Australia, but there was a wee bit of a deflection before the ball got to Hatate. As much as he might be claiming it, I don't think it would have claimed in terms of analytically. Is there any other points that you want to make, Josh, before we finish off this morning? We've
Not
spoken
particularly.
about quite a few.
Just say the game tonight. Looking forward to it. I think I'm expecting to see a strong Celtic side start the game, like Tierney getting minutes again, Cal McGregor in midfield, perhaps Rio Hatate, maybe even Cameron Carter-Vickers for a bit. I know he's been training the past couple of days as well. And then seeing Benjamin Nygren again, I thought he looked really exciting in the game against Australia. I think he could be a really good player for Celtic this season. So hoping to see more of him, Callum Osman too. So yeah, looking forward to this game tonight.
Yeah, and against top quality opposition, the Portuguese champions, they, even despite losing Ruben Amorim, they had a really good season last campaign, helped of course by Victor Gyökeres, who will not be playing. I'd be incredibly surprised if Victor Gyökeres plays tonight. I think a lot of Arsenal fans down south would be surprised as well, but Celtic have got one less striker to worry about with regard to the Swedish the Swedish forward. It will be Benjamin Nygren that plays in terms of Swedish representation and not Gyökeres. But top quality opposition, Josh, and one that I think a lot of people can look forward to. It's in Faro and a really good stadium tonight. I think there'll be fans in attendance, so it's looking to be a good test for both sides, both Celtic and Sporting Club. It'll be interesting to see who plays in their away top and who plays in their home top, won't it?
Yeah, I know, and I think games like this are where you really start to see how Celtic are doing and how they're progressing ahead of the new season. I know you've played games against Queen's Park, Cork City, Estrella, but with the step up in opposition, I think this is where you can really tell where Celtic are at. It's what happened last year. As much as they kind of had friendlies against Ayr and Queen's Park, you only really got a sense for how Celtic were doing when they went over to the USA and played the top quality sides there. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this game tonight, and I think it will be a good indicator of Celtic's progress in pre-season so far.
Yeah, a real step up for both for Celtic in both pre-season matches to come against Sporting Club and against Newcastle United. Looking forward to covering them both on the Celtic Way. Josh, thank you very much for joining me this morning. Been a pleasure as always, talking about everything Celtic related. Good to have a wee bit of news as well with regard to transfers. So exciting times at Celtic concerning ins and outs with the club. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. We'll also be live after the game tonight against Sporting Club. So keep an eye out for that after the game, and you'll see our reaction to what goes on in Faro in Portugal tonight in the Algarve. Thank you very much to everybody that has joined us this morning on the video. If you like what we do, please press that subscribe button on the YouTube. Also subscribe to the website at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. There's work on there from myself, from Josh, from John, from Tony, and all the rest of the team. Thank you everybody, and have a good rest of your day. Cheers.